A Black woman finds me after. She says, I got to tell you, the first 15 minutes, I couldn't listen to you because I was so upset about how you showed up, how unprofessional. She knows there's only a few of us Black people here. This Black woman was so concerned that I was not representing Black women well. I'm thinking that my career is going down the drain. People started saying, book that piano girl who talks.
Mrs. Jade Simmons, world-class concert pianist turned powerhouse speaker and CEO of Jade Media Global. She's known as classical music's #1 maverick, and she's redefined the role of music in personal development and leadership.
You don't need just another name or a celebrity all the time. Many companies will book a celebrity and then didn't know the topic, didn't know the audience, didn't do the homework. I've got to serve them in a very unique way. As soon as you lay eyes on me before I say a word, okay, this is gonna be different.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors Podcast. As always, REAL stands for Real Examples, Altering Lives. I'm your host, Sean Martin. Today is my honor and my privilege to have Mrs. Jade Simmons on the show. And we're going to take a ride with her today and explore her journey from becoming a world-class concert pianist turned powerhouse speaker and CEO of Jade Media Global. Welcome to the show today, Jade. How are you?
I'm good, Sean. Thank you. So glad to finally be here with you.
Yes. We have tried this a couple of times,
Yeah.
and here we are.
Here we are.
And what an amazing experience I had. I was at the Zenith Mastermind.
Right.
We didn't know what to expect, and the lights went down, and there was a grand piano in the room, and this warehouse, and just a lot going on.
There was a lot. I think there were stunt.
It was like a stunt show. Was that before or after? I don't even remember.
I can't remember.
It was all. I remember jumping off into an airbag off a 20-foot jump or something. It was so cool. And then you walk out in your shiny gold pants with your beautiful mohawk, and I'm like, who is this sister about to play some music for us? And it was just so much more than that. Tell us about your journey from traditional classical pianist to where you are now and how you've integrated the two worlds of classical music and transformational speaking.
Yeah, I'll tell the story backwards this time. I haven't gotten to really think about it this way, but I make my career now as a trained classical musician, an inspirational, activational speaker. I combine the two things to create what I call keynote concert adventures, right? And so they're designed to really help the audience go on this journey of exploration, reinvention, creativity, collaboration, depending on whatever the client is bringing me in for. Sometimes it's like where you saw me at the Zenith Mastermind with, by the way, the gold boots was because your colors were black and gold. I think I had these.
I know. I didn't even notice.
Yeah. So today I do these highly customized experiences that start with, the color of my hair and my nails and all those things too. But the message is really about activating and unleashing boldness. But that whole classical music's #1 maverick thing, I didn't go to school to be classical music #1 maverick. I just wanted to play Beethoven, Bach, Chopin, Mozart, wash, rinse, repeat. And so my early years, that's what I went to school for. My degrees are in classical piano performance. And my early career was playing straight ahead classical music concerts on stage. I came out, I bowed, I sat down, I played the music, I bowed, and I went home. And that was it. And I say this from stage sometimes. I had this weird bout of stage fright and memory slips in the first couple of years of my career. I was really starting to get established, and suddenly it was hard to be on stage. And in order to get through that time, listen, I had to pull some rabbits out of a hat because I'd be playing something and forget what I was playing. So in order to get through that, I started telling stories in between the music. So I'd entertain the audience about the music itself or the composers. I'd tell funny stories about their background or their lives. And then the audience would be all relaxed and laughing and feeling like I was oh so charming. And then I'd sit back down and play again because now I had composed myself, right? So they're thinking I'm just, trying to be entertaining. And I was just trying to figure out how to get from A to Z, so to speak.
You were just saving your skin at the time.
Listen, and I'd never improvised before. Suddenly I was improvising on the spot. There's some stuff you will do under pressure when you have to. I'm thinking that my career is going down the drain, right? I'm imagining, oh, the critics are going to just eat me alive. My booking skyrocketed. People started saying, book that piano girl who talks, right? And that was still just in the classical world, which was considered kind of staid, kind of stuffy, a little dry. And so here I was as an African-American female classical concert pianist, and now I was speaking to the audience. Eventually I got brave enough to even on purpose start experimenting with different styles of music. Today my experiences go from Beethoven all the way to rap, believe it or not, with electronics. And well, you got to see it live as well. So
absolutely. You've got to see it and experience it to really understand it. It can't be explained because it truly is a one-of-a-kind experience. And I've been treated to some really, really high-level keynote speakers and some really, really big names. But yours just stands, head and shoulders above the rest in terms of entertainment, presentation, and then tying it all in to life and the journey of life. Now, your journey from classical pianist to, all of these things intertwined is pretty unique. As a girl, a black woman of color growing up in the South, you're playing classical piano. So I'm guessing there weren't many like you, or could I be wrong?
No, there weren't a lot. Today it's so cool to look around and see just that the legacy is different now. There are lots of, I wouldn't say lots, compared to when I was growing up, definitely lots
Comparatively speaking, there's millions compared to before, because there was none.
And there's an organization, one that I actually have worked with, and they honored me with an award back in the day called the Sphinx Organization. And they focus on training and placing African-American and Latino artists, young artists from all over the world in some of the world's best symphonies. They produce concerts, and they really are a huge part of seeing these different faces blossom in the world of classical music. And so I'm honored to be connected to them. So it's a different landscape than like what you said when I grew up. My models growing up were mostly dead white guys, like not even alive. Old white guys, they're dead.
Well, you gave them some flavor, that's for sure.
I gave them a little flavor, but in the beginning, I don't think. First of all, it wasn't so much that I shouldn't paint the story of being trapped, because I loved classical music just as it was. I didn't think it needed any flavor. I loved it. I didn't know I played it a little differently, that the rhythm of Rachmaninoff to me was just intense. And I couldn't understand how come other kids weren't like bobbing their head to the Bach and and the Mozart. I instinctively heard the rhythm. And I've said to you before that, I started playing very late in the world of classical music. And I started when I was 8 years old, and most of the peers who plan to go on and make it a career start as early as 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old. So, I was almost over the hill. I had to get my act together really quickly. But I was blessed in the fact that I loved it. I practiced all the time, and I had a knack for the emotion. So even you've talked before as a trained musician yourself, LaGuardia grad, you've talked about the precision that classical music requires, and it does. And I think so many of us get really stuck on just the perfection of classical. And for a long time, if you're not careful, it'll drown out everything else. Personality, any kind of flavor, any connection with your audience, because you're just so worried about hitting all the notes. So it wasn't until that breakdown/breakthrough where I had to suddenly rely on different skills, communication skills. Can I bond with the audience? Can I cast an atmosphere? Can I improvise? All those different skills that were survival skills in that moment are now literally trademarks for me today.
Yeah, you carved out your own lane. We can credit you with becoming the first classical musician who actually integrated a conversation as opposed to just talking about the artist, about the musician, about the composer, and the music specifically, and talking about their life or talking directly to the audience. And that evolved into where you are today. What gave you the confidence to start experimenting with the music and injecting hip hop?
Yeah, it was, I was like crossing little boundaries at a time. And, we've talked offline before. There are at least 2 other guys when I was kind of building my early career who were established classical musicians, and they did more like lecture recitals. Where I will take some credit for is this stretching of an entire experience, right? That you could actually shape a classical experience to not just be classical. And so probably the hardest line that I crossed is when I began to blend, I'd say, elite music with street music. So bringing in elements of hip hop and beats. You know, we have also other artists like Black Violin is one that people know that kind of fuses hip hop. But definitely this was early 2000s for me when I was starting to do this. You didn't see a lot of it. What you did see was many of us who were trained to do classical, we'd do classical in the classical spaces. Then we'd do our wild stuff in like Le Poisson Rouge or BAM, you know, in Brooklyn. We'd play in those spaces and we'd do the wild stuff. But then we'd go in Town Hall and we'd play the Mozart, you know, in the box. And so what I was starting to do.
It was segregated.
It was
segregated. For lack of a better term.
That's it. We were segregating it, and I was compartmentalizing myself. So I might wear the mohawk, you know, on the weekend at BAM, but then I'd be in the sensible hair and the gown. And I started wondering, is there a place where all of me can live and trust? This is the hardest part. Trust that the audience is going to be okay with it. And I will say my manager wasn't okay with that. He's like, what are we doing here? And how do I tell people what you do? And so I stopped saying that I played recitals because I really didn't anymore. And today I say I take people on concert adventures that range Rachmaninoff to rap with world-class storytelling in between and life-altering inspiration that ensures you're not going to leave the same way you came. And in that, you know, I always joke, go Google it. You're only going to see one face on that one. You know what I mean? But if you were to Google classical pianist, there are a gazillion of us. So it's, you know, today I teach audiences about differentiation in the name of purpose and impact. It's not about a gimmick, right? It's about how much of myself can I offer up in a way that's going to help other people become more of themselves.
And that is the hallmark of any great speaker. It is to over-deliver, which I can say that you absolutely did. And then I got to share that time with you outside of the stage, and you were with your stylist. And, you know, we got to know each other on a more personal level, hair down, and you are very authentic, and you're that person. Where would you say that you get that from? Who or how early on did you identify that you had this gift of compassion? Because not everybody can do that in an authentic way. There are people who can get up there and speak in a manner that is very professional and organized and, you know, rehearsed. But you have the confidence to go from the gut. And that takes a certain level of compassion and connection to other fellow humans.
I come in and I want you to be fired up, but I want you to be whole. You know, I want you to chase your dreams, but I want it to really be your dream and not society's dreams for you. Do you know what I mean? Like I want realness for people. And then lastly would say I have a very unusual gift, which is that I am not able to be embarrassed. I've never really, embarrassment is far from me. And I think that came from having some screw ups on stage that I remember going, I should be really embarrassed. And I would just talk to the audience and tell them. So I honestly don't remember what comes after this. So I'm just going to play something else for you right now. And I don't know. I mean, I've been in some big moments that probably should be intimidating. And they just aren't, because I truly believe we're just all people. Right. Right? What is another person to intimidate you? And so if anything angers me, it's when people are walking around intimidated by other humans. If I had a magic wand, that would be the thing I would take off of people. This idea of imposter syndrome, which I don't really believe exists. I believe we've manufactured that. Anything that causes us to be small when we're designed to be so big so that we can have monumental impact. If you want to get me riled up, show me someone who's behaving in a small way and is living in a box that was never designed for them.
You shared your story in your speech or in your presentation about being a young kid who did start a little late at 8 years old. Mm-hmm. In your particular, field. They usually start at 4 or 5, and not feeling comfortable in that box because it is such a resume. Classical music is down to the, the 16th note. I mean, mm-hmm. and beyond the 32nd note. Everything is meticulous and calculated, and you have to do the same thing over hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of times to perfect it. So where did you find the courage, and how did you just realize that you weren't supposed to be in that box?
It's the funny thing is, it's when I actually started looking at the original guys. They weren't doing everything perfectly. They weren't playing the entire sonata all the way through with no applause in between. Remember how I said that something starts one way and then we as humans begin to formalize it. And so we're taught classical music in a very specific way. You play a Mozart sonata, it has 3 movements. You play, you pause. Think about it. When people are visiting a classical music concert, they instinctively start clapping and the audience kind of looks at them and they go, oh, my bad, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to clap there. Well, I found out they were supposed to clap there. We had just formalized that out and created these stuffy environments when that's not, classical is classical to us. But in many of those settings, people just got together and jammed, right? I mean, it was Beethoven debuting his first movement. He didn't even have the second movement written yet. He just wanted to see what the audience reaction was. It was Liszt, with women throwing their gloves off and fainting. Dude was hot and he knew it. So where did we get this idea that we couldn't come out and be stylish, right? And, I never used to paint my nails because I thought I wouldn't be taken seriously as a classical. Now they're like 3 different colors and I might have jewelry on them, because it's like when I looked back, and I think we do this as humans, we sort of either sensationalize or romanticize an era and we make it something it wasn't. These were human. So even today when I go to some keynotes, Sean, they'll say, we're a little worried about the bass. I can't remember what we had in the warehouse, but usually when I'm in these spaces, we request the biggest subwoofers. And I'm like, they've got to feel it in their chest. So when I leave Mozart and go into Missy Elliott sound and stuff, I need them to feel it. And we have a couple clients who will say, we're just a little worried that the bass is
it's a little too much for our audience.
And we'll say, your audience listens to their favorite non-classical music in their cars with the volume turned up. They want to feel it on their own time. Why wouldn't they want to feel it here? It's just the setting is different. And we tell them that's the magic, is they're not expecting it. They're not expecting to be at a business conference and have their necks start going. They're not expecting to have their toe tapping. And that's what you want. And so sometimes our heavy lift is in convincing the client that we know their people maybe even better than
they do. Because they have a set standard for how they book. Who they want, the results that they want, the deliverables, and you offer something very, very unique.
But they still get it. They still get it. Of course.
The audience gets it probably more than the booker. Because the booker...
afterwards, the client it's always wonderful to see. And honestly, 95% of the time, they trust us. They're coming to us because they want what you just described. But the ones that were hesitant and their team talked them into it. I think I remember Dean even saying, I've never heard of her. My assistant found her. And it was like, oh, thanks for that introduction. But, sometimes they don't know what they're getting.
Right.
And
we didn't know.
You don't know. But that's a part of the magic is you don't need another best-selling author. And, I have a best-selling book, but that's not why you need me to come. Right? You don't need just another name or a celebrity all the time. Many companies will book a celebrity and then say, oh, can you come this time instead? Because the celebrity didn't know the topic, didn't know the audience, didn't do the homework. And that's something I pride myself on, is deep diving into the people in the room, which is what enables me to go into a bunch of different industries, because I really want them, again, to feel like I'm not just dialing it in. Right? And doing the same thing I did for the last room for theirs.
No, for sure. You definitely did it. And it's a confidence in yourself. It speaks volumes. And the outfits and the style speaks volumes. And where did that come about? How early on in your career and your experimentation with this hybrid of classical and hip hop? And, when was the first time that you tried that?
Man, it's been an evolution. We're at another point now where Dolores and I are getting bored. I had High Tower Financial Advisors. Their colors were orange. That's why I have the orange, right? And I'll go to Pat Stone next week. And, Zenith was black and gold. That's why I had the blonde
I just
mohawk
put that together
and the
now that you
bold.
said
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I
What?
think they even had these earrings on. So I think about those things because to me it's a customized experience. We're also very premium priced keynote, and so we need you as soon as you lay eyes on me before I say a word. You need to know, okay, this is going to be different. And so I believe it's an entire package. So remember, if my purpose is to help you be bigger and bolder, I can't show up small. And if I'm being honest, Sean, it took me even a while to internalize that. I had the message before I had the look. And I used to joke I would pack 2 outfits and then I would beat myself up the night before going, do I wear this more conservative corporate suit or the fringe, right? And
Right.
newsflash, you should always go with the fringe, right?
Yeah.
But I remember being in my hotel room late one night struggling over one of my first corporate keynotes because now I want to be taken seriously. You brought in the artist, but I can't have you think I'm really an artist. I've got to be as businessy as you. And I remember feeling like, this is stupid. If they really wanted me to come in and look just like them, they could have just hired an insider, right? So it's kind of understanding why you're built the way you're built. So the more boldly I show up, before I even say a word, you sense boldness. And if my job is to unlock boldness in you, what better way than, especially when women see me in a corporate setting, I didn't know I could put color in my hair and come to work. I didn't know I could, wear knee-high boots. It's like, it was just all these, to me, duh. But for them, it's eye-opening, but they have to see it in real time. So it's about really walking out the entire message and personifying it, if at all possible.
It sounds like the style evolved and continues to evolve.
Yeah.
The music as well has evolved, and the experimentation with going from classical to integrating hip hop and synthesizers and just, you have to see it and experience it to believe it and to appreciate it. How long have you been in the game of,
this whole
pianist
thing?
and speaker?
Yeah, I was counting this back the other day. I would say that kind of big breakthrough experience with the little old lady in the back of the room, that keynote that came from that was 2014 or maybe 2012. So that I would count as like the official time where I was the keynote speaker who a piano comes with her wherever she goes.
Gotcha.
And then I would say for the next, even those first 2 or 3 years, I was still mildly conservative in my look. And then I would say, especially over the last 8 years, 5 to 8 years or so, Dolores and I have gotten bolder and bolder. And we do more changes. So if I'm doing your keynote and then I'm doing a breakout, I'll probably still look completely different by the time I get to the breakout or by the time I get to the fireside chat, because I'm challenging audiences to continually reinvent. So even at my own gym, when I started going to a new gym, like those first 3 months, every time I'd come in, they'd be like, Jade? Yeah, it's me. I literally had locks that went down in the middle of my back one week and then a mohawk the next. And they just were like, this can't be the same person. But I'm addicted to change. And so it helps me. That's where I get my change fix. And I'm able to teach people about becoming more comfortable with change because I love it so much.
Yeah, I guess you intercepted my next question, which was is that a reflection of your desire for change? Is that how you actually instill that desire to change? It's not only in the internal belief systems, but also in the outfits and everything that you do.
And everything. Yeah, I mean, and I still find pockets of myself that need renovation. So for instance, Dolores would put locks in my hair. Now you can buy every type of hair and it already comes locked and everything. And I would wear these long, I call them alien blonde locks, but I'd only wear them in the summer because I didn't feel like they were appropriate for my corporate setting. Even though I'd done mohawks and I'd rocked long hair, short hair, something about locks maybe were too ethnic or too unprofessional. Yeah. And you don't even know you have these hangups because these hangups have been given to you.
Of course.
Right? And as a Black female, I mean, one of the best things we get to do is do whatever the heck we want with our hair. Our hair can do anything. And so only recently have I started wearing the whole gamut with no limits anywhere, right? So QuickBooks, blonde mohawk to the side with curly hair, right? I judged Miss America. I had long wavy hair, right? So it's even, you'll find out where you're still worried about what people think. And again, one of my superpowers is not really caring. And so when I find a pocket where I find out, oh, I still care. And it's not that you don't care about, I put it this way, I care too much about people to care about what they think. So what I mean by that is I've got to serve them in a very unique way. And if I allow their wrong misperception of me or their stereotype of me to block me from showing up how I should, because I'm worried about what they're going to think, I won't even get to serve them how I'm supposed to.
And I'm sure you've come across that stereotype your entire career and your entire life.
Yeah,
as a Black woman.
in the career, it's funny. In the classical music world, of course, I'm at least back in the day. Now there's so many more classical musicians of color and so many wonderful organizations that recognize them. Sphinx organization in Detroit is one of those. But I remember playing a corporate event and I had my red leather pants on. I had long hair on one side, shaved on the other. And I'm wearing like a fringe top. I'm hitting it. I'm hot to try, right? And we get done.
Looking like an R&B artist, not a classical pianist.
That's part of it, because they hear classical pianist. The last thing I want to do is confirm that stereotype.
Right.
She's going to be something and boring. I'm going to go get my drink now. I'm going to go to the bathroom now. You have to come out and they go, wait, that's not what we were expecting. And then you sit down and play Mozart looking like you were about to rap, right? And then after you've done Mozart, you actually rap. They're like, what just happened, right? So I'm having the time of my life. The audience is coming with me. And a Black woman finds me after. And she's very transparent. She says, I got to tell you, the first 15 minutes, I couldn't listen to you because I was so upset about how you showed up. She's like, I was thinking how unprofessional. She knows there's only a few of us Black people here. We've got to assimilate.
Gotta conform.
That's the word, but it's not the word they use. We've got to be professional, but it's conform. And it's funny to be considered too Black, because when I was little, I was considered too white. That's a whole other whole other episode, right? So it's funny to be in this world now where this Black woman was so concerned that I was not representing Black women well. And she said, and then I watched. But she said, and then I watched. And she said, I'm over here feeling some type of way. And this entire audience of mostly white people are letting you be you and loving every minute of it and wishing they were you. And I'm over here in my little gray corporate suit having no fun. And she said she had a whole moment, cried and everything during the presentation, because she realized her problem was with herself. It wasn't with me. But she was telling the story. My assistants are back there going, "Are we gonna have a problem?
Are we gonna putting the Vaseline on, taking the earrings off, ponytail? Hold on, we have to smack her.
Give her a chance, because I could sense where she was going, and I appreciated the honesty.
That took a lot of courage on her behalf to share that, because, I mean, that is a monumental shift. I don't think she was ever the same after that.
She said she looked at herself and thought, who told me to wear, like, she's like, my bosses didn't even say I had to wear this. I put this on me. And that's why I said very intentionally at the beginning, what roused me up is when people have themselves in boxes, right? Because of the assumptions we make about what is assumed of us. Now, I can cut a figure in a nice corporate Black suit like nobody's business, and then give you the leather and the boots and all the things. It's being a communications and performance chameleon. But what I choose needs to be what I choose, not because I felt like someone else chose it for me. So of course there's knowing where the setting is, what's your role in the setting. I've been in the world of politics. I'll probably be in that world again soon. I'm still going to be me. I might not be in leather pants for that, but you will still see Jade. Do you know what I mean? So it's just making sure we don't lose ourselves as we're going out trying to have the impact we're called to have.
Yeah, I think that only comes with confidence, obviously, but having failed and fallen on your face and felt so bad inside that you couldn't be yourself. Okay. I hid from the world for so long. I don't even know if you know this part of my story, but I was in prison for a couple of years, and I hid that from my suburban neighbors and people at the gym because I now live in a lily white suburb in Long Island here, about 45 minutes to an hour from New York City. And what are they going to think of me? And, early in my career it was the suits, and then I got more comfortable and the suits came off, and then it was the jacket and the jeans. And then it became the athleisure, and I just started getting dressed up again, and then we did the Kentucky Derby, and I'm like, oh, okay, I still got it, but I'm doing this for me now.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to build a business because I think this is how somebody's supposed to see me in order for them to feel comfortable. And, it's sad because if we're playing in that world, particularly in the corporate world, on either side of the fence, as a speaker, you had that syndrome in the beginning. This lady had her entire career where she had this revelation at one of your presentations where, damn, I done given up a part of my authenticity to conform to what somebody else thinks or what I felt somebody else would be comfortable with me looking like.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us suffer that because success doesn't necessarily look like us. It doesn't feel like we can be ourselves. I think that's made a huge shift just in our lifetime. Your father's a civil rights activist, so obviously you've seen change. And unfortunately, change takes time because it comes with generations. And, you alluded to the fact that you probably were too white for your black neighbors.
And when I was, for my black friends, or maybe they weren't my friends, probably those ones. I mean, my kid friends are still my closest friends, but it was environments that I would go into. Just playing classical music. Why is she trying to be white, right?
Right. And my daughter, she sounds like a white girl from Long Island, even though she's, brown and beautiful and as Latina as it gets. She definitely, if she opens her mouth and I took her to the Bronx, she'd be like the little white girl. So, it's something that we struggle with.
It is a struggle.
You have strong parents. I'm guessing you and your husband make for strong parents too.
We do.
How have all these lessons over the course of the last 2 generations played out in your personal life and the lives of your children thus far?
The thing about the children, it's like I am realizing now you can only kind of hope, wish, and pray that all that stuff is getting down in there. My kids are not who I thought they were going to be. My daughter is just the sweetest little delicate flower. And, and when she was younger, she was more of like my rough and tumble tomboy, because that's what I asked for. And she's turned into she's a great girl, but I don't have any athletes. I thought I would always have athletes. I had all these plans, right? I mean, I knew how they were going to be and exactly what they were going to do. My son is a musician, but not in the way that I thought. He's a metalhead guitarist, but he's incredible. And he has many of the gifts that I was not born with. They skipped a generation and went to him. He can play by ear. He can improv, all those things. My daughter's an incredible singer, but when she gets on stage, she's very chill. She doesn't have the performance gene. And so as a parent, you're going, wait a minute, you're supposed to be exactly like me in this way and do all these things. And they just don't. But I'll tell you what, every now and then you get this glimpse of your kids when they don't know you're watching and you hear, okay, they've been listening. The things that really matter, they got. They know who they are. They treat people with incredible respect and empathy. My daughter and my son, incredible compassion for others, though they show it very differently. To them, mommy is on 100 all the time. My daughter was like, if you're coming to school, can you please, mommy, what does she say? You have too much pizzazz, Mom. You have too much pizzazz. And I obviously
tone it down.
Yeah, she's always like, tone it down. And I said, I will not. But when I go there, I'm careful not to, of course, do anything that overshadows my daughter, but I still show up as myself, and her kids love my clothes. I don't know why their friends think I'm awesome.
Oh, I'm sure you're cooler than the other moms.
I think so.
Just not to your kids.
Just not to my kids.
My 7-year-old paid me the biggest compliment ever the other day and said, I'm a cool dad. I was like, can you say that again on camera, please?
Please, you're going to want to record that, put it on the calendar.
In a couple of years, I won't be. But then again, oh man, this is going to get me in trouble. But today, my wife and I left the house at the same time, and my son was going to daycare. My wife was taking him to daycare. I was headed here to the studio.
Yeah.
And we're leaving the house, and it's like a windy road to get to the main road. And she calls me and I'm like, damn, like, typical husband fashion. Like, I just left the house, leave me alone. And she's like, oh, it's the cutest thing. Lucas, he thinks we're chasing you right now. And I was like, in the rearview mirror, it does look like you're chasing me. It's raining. Can you be careful? And then you hear him giggling in the background. And then it turned into a drag race.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And my wife and I are literally, we speed up through the neighborhood. God forbid they're going to kill me.
We race.
And then we get on the main road, and when it gets to 2 lanes, we're literally racing in the rain. And my son, I'm on the phone, I hear him giggling. She overtakes me. I speed up to catch her, and then we look at each other. We had the biggest smile and the biggest laugh, and then we part. I go to the highway, she goes straight. And at that moment, I just thought, damn, we're cool parents. We are cool parents.
Yeah.
Because we have the flavor of having grown up the way we grew up. And now we have this entirely different life that we lead.
You have the means. You have the flavor and the means. It's a rare
combination. The flavor and the memes, but we didn't lose the flavor. We didn't conform to make anybody else feel comfortable. Our own experience when we moved into the suburbs was to hide. We had this beautiful acre property, and it's private. And I was like, damn, white people love to walk. And they're always walking up and down the block. And they just getting their exercise, and everybody's got a dog. And, for years we didn't come out. We didn't mingle. We did what we had to do, and people knew us, and, very cordial. But we didn't start integrating because it was so uncomfortable. The worlds are just so different. And
have you found that they're not as different as you thought?
No. Human beings are much more alike than they would love to, or not love to, than they would ever know. Because politics and division and the news and everything just is skewed to keep us fighting amongst each other, so the few control the resources of the many, and we can't organize in order to kind of oust that silly old belief system. But they know what they're doing, and there's certain components to human nature that keep us divided. I'm going to go out on a limb, maybe get myself in trouble here, but even racism, which we know is real, and systematic racism and all the things that your father, faced and fought for, those things are very real.
Yeah.
But if we continue to amplify them in the news like they do, and use every opportunity on one side or the other to weaponize that, it keeps people from having the conversations we need, which let us know that we're more human and more connected than we are different. Even a corrections officer one time, I got in trouble in prison, and the punishment was to go polish the knobs on the floor. So they had the brass knobs in this old prison, and my punishment, I don't even remember what I did, but he's walking around and we're busting chops. And I remember Sarah Palin was running at the time, and he was making a comment about how hot Sarah Palin was. And I was like, I only remember that component because she was running, and she was the first, vice president female that ran, right? And I just looked at him, I said, we got a lot more in common than we do differences. And it took him back, because it wasn't his average prisoner telling him this. Was someone who he didn't know had a college degree and made more money than he did before I got locked up. And it was just like a revelation to him.
Yeah.
And whatever, God spoke those words through me to, maybe, hopefully it made an impact, maybe it didn't. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is, I realized in that moment that my gut feeling was absolutely right. That we all are human beings. We all have much more in common than we do apart. Yeah, we live our lives differently. We have different value systems. Our food has much more flavor, and we have more rhythm when we dance. But I just released a video on social the other day which spoke to the DEI component of the struggle these days. And it's that we just want a piece of this country that we helped to build. And unfortunately, the systematic procedures and systems that are in place and have been in place for generations have prevented, we're not asking you to give us anything. We're just asking you, now that you have your foot off our neck, or at least most of it, and that's debatable too. Rest in peace, George Floyd, not metaphorically speaking. Wow. The reality is that there's never been a better time for progress, and tomorrow will be better than today was, and so on and so forth. Because I think people realize and they're starting to see through a lot of the bullshit. Not everybody, but social media, the ability to connect with people that you would not otherwise geographically be able to connect with, is allowing us to have conversations and laugh at things that, we weren't able to. In my day, it was the racial jokes, where you were able to snap with a white guy or a black guy or a Puerto Rican guy at the construction site or in school, and that lowered the protection of
No, it does. I use
humor is a great tool.
Humor is huge, and I speak about race in my corporate events. Via
how uncomfortable
humor.
It must be at first.
People, they actually it allows us to go, okay, we're all thinking a lot of the same things a lot of the same time. It also makes us, people of color as well go, oh yeah, I got a little bias in me too, huh? It's important to just recognize the things that are human and the things that are evil. They're very different. I would say to what you're saying, if what you were saying were not true, if we didn't still have these issues, you wouldn't see other nations try to weaponize them against us. People look at, in the election cycles, some of the stuff we've been able to link to Russia. They've used race very powerfully to create division and conversation online. You used a word that I hadn't thought to use with this. You said when the guard heard you speaking, he had a revelation. And I think what society has done, and maybe the oversaturation now of social media and us being so media fascinated, it hasn't allowed us time to have revelation. Because it's like when you finally come out of your house and take the walk or meet the neighbor, then you have the revelation, oh my gosh, we're more alike, right? When you have to be in proximity, then you're going to have the revelation. You're around somebody long enough, you realize how much more we do have in common. Lastly, I'll ask the question, have you thought about running for office?
With my criminal record, I'm a good candidate these days.
I think you might be eschewing.
I do not have the stomach for politics.
Yeah.
God bless your heart when you said that you do it. I can see it in you. Mm-hmm. I am rough.
This
where maybe I would need to be gentle.
No.
Maybe.
Nope. That's why I asked. Because I think what politics needs is people speaking frankly. I mean, because when you don't have anything to lose,
I'm flattered, by the way.
when politics is not your career, then you don't have anything to lose. Because I can say something and lose, and you don't own me. I don't answer to.
But maybe we brought up a subject that needed some talking about.
We just talk about it. I'm a staunch independent, so neither side.
Yeah, me too. I can't. We were raised to believe we were Democrat because we were poor and we came up in the hood in New York, and Democrat is the party. And then now that I live in the suburbs, and I'm not a Republican. No. And quite frankly, love him or hate him, I don't think Donald Trump's a Republican either.
No, he wasn't.
He never is, and he still isn't. But we have to keep the two-party system so that you can still pick a side, and they can claim that guy or that gal. That reality is not there anymore. Donald Trump is not a Republican at heart.
This is why I asked, because I think even if it's not officially running for office, I would just love to hear more voices like yours say the things you're saying. And I think that may be all that's needed so that we can have a revelation. That's all.
Yeah, I guess, I haven't explored that out of fear, if we're being honest.
Yeah, of course.
Fear of the fact that it's a snaky business where they will use your past against you. And I don't want my family going through all that shit.
I got you.
And, I might revert back to my street behavior if somebody try to wrong my family. So and you know what? It's funny because I always said in business, doesn't matter what business you're in, right? It's competitive and it is cutthroat. But like you can lose your life for a few dollars where I come from.
Yeah.
The best that would happen to you now if you cheated someone out of millions of dollars was you get sued. And I like that place a lot better than the streets. And I just had a guy from the Bronx who's also educated, very similar. And we talked about it. And once you get out, it's hard to come back and see a lot of the dysfunction without feeling helpless to some extent. You know, I just went to the organization that I chair, and I'm trying to uplift the dance organization out of East Harlem. You've seen my posts. You've seen them. I promote the hell out of them. I believe so strongly in them. And they had their show in the South Bronx on 149th and Grand Concourse, 3rd Avenue. And I parked my car and I'm walking up the block, and there's dog shit on the sidewalk. And it's just stuff that, you know, you see and you're just like, even when you were young, it just felt wrong. But it's like, I grew up in the projects where it was the same thing. You got a dog, you don't let it shit in the middle of the sidewalk. But that's how bad the problems there are.
I understand.
And again, it's not a person of color. It's a poverty. It's a poverty problem. Because if I went to the Deep South and went to a trailer park that was predominantly white, we'd see probably the same.
No, I get it. We're in Virginia Beach here visiting. I had an event here, and I take my mom to a doctor's appointment. And with this particular condition, it affects a lot of Black and Latino people. And I hate that these facilities are always in a certain part of town. They're always never kept like they need to be kept. And it's like you cross a line. And like you said, it's this feeling of what do the people who live here, what did they do to deserve such a striking difference from where I was just on the other side of the bridge? And it's when you realize, you know, how many things need to be fixed. But it's also where you can kind of rally and go, okay, you know, God help me to be in all the places I'm supposed to be, saying the things I'm supposed to say. Make sure I'm never doing anything just out of comfort and only because of how much it pays me. Am I really where you need me to be, serving who you've called me to serve, you know? So I guess I only ask that question to let you know it's really powerful to hear your voice and to know that there's so much impact in it. So thank you for the work that you're doing. If I can ever be we are going to do in person, whether I come to you or you come to me. This was amazing. I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate that, because the truth is I've heard that before. And, you know, maybe when I feel like my family is set, my career in this new shift is set, it'll present itself if that's what it's meant to be, the right time, the right place. For right now, I feel like being in the private sector allows me to make more impact with less regulation and not having to watch what I say. It gives me a platform to just be me, and I'm still finding me at 46. So, you know, I'm on this journey of self-development. You've been on it a lot longer than I have. You come from good roots. And, you know, my mother did the best that she could with what she had, and she did a great job, but I found every way to F that up for a while so I could find myself where I am now. So my journey is going to take a little longer, hence just getting into the best shape that I can so I can last as long as I can and make as much difference as I can. You know, but it's a process, and I know with absolute certainty that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think you do too. And not very many people are blessed with that. And I know how most people live and die. I say most people live and die without ever uncovering that thing.
That goosebumps, because that lady, you know, you mentioned the lady with her mom or her grandmother in the piano, but I think that lady in the suit was an even more powerful story for me, because how many of us as people of color have to hide when we go and play the game that was designed for them? And I don't mean them, the man or anything. I just mean the game that we couldn't be ourselves because we had to change who we were to enter that game. We gave up part of ourselves. We know we had something else. And this is the thing, right? We go back to the hood. We see all the problems, and it feels like these things are insurmountable. But there are a ton of people who have the same ability who just need that light.
That's it.
And they just need to hear you or hear me or hear somebody tell them something that sparks something that gives them another level, and then again, another level, another level. And anybody that I come across that even remotely now gives me the inclination that they want out, I feed them. I'm the light for them. Whatever you need. If it's the podcast platform, no problem. Come on, we'll make it happen. So, you know, most people can't give unselfishly without the thought of getting in return because they haven't gotten the chip off their shoulder. They don't have the resources. I've been blessed enough to be in some amazing rooms like Zenith. And feel like an imposter because There's so many people there that are wealthier than me, but that's not my mission.
No. And there's no matter what room, whatever room we go into, if we're heading up, they've got to be people who have more than we.
Of course.
Right? That's just how the rooms are.
Brokest, dumbest guy or gal in the room, right? Yeah. Is my joke. And I was with Tony Robbins at the last event. And me being me with no hair on my tongue, I sharing with Tony directly one-on-one in a very small setting, which very few people will ever get to do. And I'm having a conversation with him like this, like just an honest conversation. It's like, Tony, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass and da-da-da-da-da. And, thanks for giving us the tools to change our lives. Everybody gives you credit for changing their life, but the truth is they had to have the desire first to do it. And you give so many people the tools to do it. And I always thought I was going to be the brokest, dumbest guy in this room. And I was pleasantly surprised to know that I wasn't either. And I mean, uproar. Everybody, like, who says that? Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I love it.
My crazy ass. So I credit my mom with that because she just spoke her mind and she's blessed me with that. Your parents have blessed you, and I'm sure your kids are going to bless the world in their own way. And yeah, they're never going to turn out like you want them to, right?
At least not on paper. Like I said, what I'm finding out is what is inside them is so wonderful. And it's, we don't always get to see it because they're at mine are at their teenage years, and my son's too cool for school kind of a thing. And my daughter's finally getting a little more grown up, than my little baby girl. But I'm getting to see that the stuff that matters is in there, and your prayer is that as they grow, they run into people, like yourself, different people at different stages that are going to impart something you couldn't, that they're going to get it from somewhere else. And so I believe in advance that everything else that they need, they'll be surrounded. I always pray that my kids and anybody I'm praying for, that they're never in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing with the wrong people, and that their steps are ordered. So I'm excited to see how our paths continue to cross. I'd love to inspire the dance troupe that you were talking about.
Yeah, we're taking them to the next level. So I can absolutely see that happening at some point in the future. I'd be honored. What's next for Jade?
Well, I'm actually in Virginia because I was graduating. I think you saw that on.
I did. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I roll right over into the PhD program here. I'm actually getting a degree in government, hence some of the questions that I was asking you. But I'm still doing everything.
I might take that ride if it's with you.
Yeah, see? I'm still performing, still speaking. We have an engagement on Monday. Right after I leave here, I'll go for that. And then we're building a media studio in Houston. We want to be able to serve other content creators, producers, corporations with high-level content creation in Houston. So we're excited. We think we're going to be like the best studio in Houston. God knows we've spent the money and the time building it. So we built. I
have no doubt. Is that Jade Media Global?
Jade Media Global Studios. So
tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Too long of a story for the remaining time, but I will say, one of those things where you think you're thinking big and you realize you weren't thinking big at all. We had a banner year financially in the business, and I bought my dream piano, and my tax person was like, you still need to spend a little more money before the year is out for tax purposes. I was like, oh, that's a nice rich girl problem. I'll take it,
Yeah.
So we were out spending some money, and I was just looking for a space to put my piano in. Like a nice little, loft area or something where I can house the piano because it's huge, and maybe do a few recordings in there. Long story very short, we ended up finding the space that was perfect for like headquarters, and suddenly it turned into building out a major studio and office space and a conference area. And so it became something a lot bigger than what I set out to.
Took on a life of its own.
We thought it'd take about 3 months to build out. We're now in the second year of the build out, and so we hope to be in before summer is out. So we're excited.
These are good problems to have. I can't wait to see when it all comes together. Yeah. I just want to thank you for coming on, and we finally getting this done. Even with the hiccups, you're such an amazing person, such an amazing interview, so natural. I didn't even need this little cheat sheet I got over here. It did give me some guidance to get us warmed up, but I just want you to share some last words, impart some of that beautiful wisdom that you do in your talks for our audience, and just leave us with some gems if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always say as an artist, we kind of go to school and then we hope to get an agent, or we hope to get a recording deal, and we're always waiting for somebody to discover us and take us to this next level. And my plea to anyone who is watching and listening is, do not wait around to be discovered. Spend this time discovering yourself instead. There is nothing anybody on the outside is going to be able to mine from you that you can't start mining for yourself. It's that time really understanding how you're built, how you're made. That's going to show you what you're designed to offer to the world. Sean and I both do masterminds and personal development. All that stuff is awesome. But even the greatest heads of state don't know how you were created and why you were put here. So do that work and trust that what's inside of you is designed to come out and impact others. There's so many solutions we have inside of us that are sitting there because of fear, like you were saying, Sean, that we're holding back some way, shape, or form because we don't think either that we're necessary or that the world wants us. And I'll tell you that sometimes they don't know what they need and they don't know to want you. So offer yourself instead and trust that the people assigned to you will be changed forever because you put yourself out there.
Amen. What beautiful words. And I cannot wait for us to connect and do this again in person. Jade, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your valuable time today. We're going to have all of Jade's information, including her social media links, in the bio. But leave us with your social media links so people can at least find you in the meantime.
Yeah. I hang out mostly on Instagram at official Jade Simmons, and my website is jadesimmons.com. You can find out where else you can connect with me there.
Another reminder, official Jade Simmons, because we actually had a trainer named Jade Simmons.
That's right.
In the UK that trained my wife. What are the chances? That is hilarious.
That's right.
God bless, sis. I appreciate you. As always, let's get it. Stay tuned to the Real Mentors podcast for more incredible people like the amazing Jade Simmons.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.